And welcome.
Recording in progress.
Welcome to You Be the Judge. I'm Dr. Paul Dyer and my co-host Marlin, Pierre, attorney at law, also running for a circuit court judge in Montgomery County, and our other distinguished co-host, Judge Claudia Barber. She may be coming in late or a little bit later. We have a guest today. Her name is Misha, and we'll get into that if she shows up. I know she's running a little bit late, and she may have some other things, but we're watching the clock. But here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about Afghanistan, and this is a legal matter because it becomes, why are we talking about Afghanistan, and from our legal minds, what is it that the public can do, and how should they be feeling? Oh, I'll rephrase that. Now, how should you be feeling? How are you feeling? Because this is pulling on our heartstrings and it's pulling on different emotional, and we're not sure where we stand legally, constitutionally, or where do we stand emotionally as a country, or how do we stand as human beings individually? So as we begin, I would like to stipulate first and put a disclaimer out there. As a military person, I've been to Afghanistan. I know the people. I know the people that shot at me. I know the people that didn't shoot at me. And I couldn't tell them apart if you put them in a lineup. That is just the truth. I just couldn't. There's so many countries I've been in that I'm never going to tell you who's who, who's what, and what is what. So as you put that out there, when you start to say who is left behind, now there are certain individuals that has helped the Americans in either Afghanistan, and no matter what foreign country, any country, pick a country where we've been, we've always had advisors, we've always had translators, we've always had people that helped us. And it goes back since the beginning of any conflict. I think we've been in even since the French and Indian War. So it doesn't matter how far back you go, you're going to have people who live there, work there, who are going to help us. Whether you force them, we can get into that's a whole different discussion, or whether you say, we will pay you and take care, we give you an offer, right? It has always happened. Look at your history. So this is nothing new and it's nothing old. This is a continuous issue ever. Now, how can we look at that? Marilyn, what are your thoughts before I get on one of my rants? What are your thoughts about the Afghanistan issue?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for your service.
Well, thank you for your service because you also served. And don't you
Well,
forget
thank
it.
you very much, but I was not deployed anywhere, so I think I'm on the first rung and you're on another level. So thank you so very much. In reference to that, I mean, I've been watching the news. My heart, bleeds for the people and what they're going through. And I am not sure that I have the level of confidence that I need to discuss this issue as well as you do. I don't know. I know Will is very well read, and I know that Holly as well as Jolie and Kathy. They know a whole lot of things about what's going on, and I invite them to add whatever they want to add.
Will, would you like to
Will,
add
would you like to
anything?
add something?
We,
You're on mute.
Yeah, go ahead. Who's talking?
Will,
Okay. Can you hear me?
yes.
Yes.
Okay, where does one start? The first thing is that the force in Afghanistan was a loser from the very start. First of all, it did not democratize Afghanistan. It did for 20 years help women that the former government badly treated. Well, the government was corrupt. The army had according to the Post, had high desertion rates. Our mission there was never going to succeed, like the Russian mission 30 years ago was never going to succeed.
Correct.
So it is cheaper. It is cheaper to be out. It is cheaper to be out and to watch to make sure they don't do bad things to U.S. interests than it is to occupy the country.
And I think that's where people kind of see. So Afghan, one of their major crops that we have watched over closely and perforated was the opium crop. That's where we get a lot of opium from, and that's where we collect a lot of the opiates and so drug pharma. Now, they were also, like Will said, they were doing some atrocities to women over there for a very long time. When I'm not going to get into a cultural issue, I'm not going to get into a religion issue. We just know that humanity was being harmed. Now, humanity is also being harmed on all levels across the globe, even here in the United States.
Right.
That is undebatable. So we're not going to debate about whether we should have been there or we didn't be there. We were there, and now it's time to leave. I understand. I'm struggling with feeling sad because we know that people are going to be killed and slaughtered, and families are going to be killed and slaughtered because we left. That is a fact. I don't know how we should start expressing that as a culture of people in the United States. I don't know how we come to grips with it, but this isn't the last time this has happened. This isn't the first time this has happened. Every time we go into a place and every time we remove our presence, people get killed because of ... Does the reasons matter why they get killed? I'm not really sure. I don't think death matters always. Life matters always. And I speak to that just recently, having a brand new granddaughter. And I just recently lost a friend today. Life matters, death matters. And we can rejoice in life and we can be saddened by death. The issue is people are going to die. And is it our fault? Do you think it's a fault that we have? Or is it just an outcome that's going to come? Now, that's the sad issue. Our guest was going to talk about, she has very straight connections with Afghanistan. She's been trying to help Afghan women, trying to get out of there and trying to keep them safe, keep them to the embassy because they were all part of the embassy and working. We're leaving a lot of people behind. We have gotten some people out. We are not going to satisfy a lot of people. And eventually, even if the people who come in, we're not going to fully know if it's the complete people that was supposed to be let in. That is something, I don't care what you hear, what you tell, no one's ever going to know those true numbers because some people, maybe I'll use the term loosely, terrorists are going to be able to make their way through because women who should have been helped and brought over are not going to be helped. These are sad fact issues. Now, how do we brace ourselves? Because we have to leave Afghanistan. We should have left years ago. Go ahead, Will.
In two comments.
Yes, sir.
Okay. The first thing is, in my view,
Yeah.
our aid should go to poor, starving Black people on the Mississippi Delta and to poor, starving white people, 20th generation white people in Appalachia. In my view, they come first. A second comment is that, what was that, 150,000, I think it was, Vietnamese came to the United States after 1979.
Correct.
Some of you may know that I am the secretary of the local Vietnamese organization. Some of them have turned out very well. On the other hand, if you saw that series on Vietnam, the PBS series 6 months ago, whatever it was, the people who left were largely Roman Catholics, and the Roman Catholics were not very nice to the Buddhists in Vietnam. this very complicated situation with the good people, the good people in Vietnam starved. See, the not so good people came to the United States and have seemingly done well. But they're the ones I'm not concerned with. I'm concerned with the 20th generation Blacks on the Mississippi Delta and the 20th century whites in Appalachia, all of whom need help badly.
Thank you. Well, and I want to welcome in another co-host, Judge Claudia Barber. We're talking about the Afghan issue. What's your feel on the Afghan issue about, just what is your feeling about it? Our guest was supposed to talk on it. She may not be here. She's running behind, but I'm watching the clock closely. So that's because that's our question. Our question is we're not questioning should we leave, because we have to leave. We're not questioning that bad people are going to come over. That's without question, just like Will said. And good people are going to be left behind and they're going to be killed. But as a country of the U.S., our feelings are being divided by this and that, and we already have enough division.
Well, I agree with that. Now, when it comes to relevancy of issues, too, there's a situation in Haiti that's really catastrophic. And the United States government has not opened their doors.
At all.
I'm just saying, they haven't. And to the extent that they should, yes, just like they did for the Afghanistan people, because, 20,000 Afghanistans, or even people coming from Afghanistan into other areas, including the US, shows a very different policy.
Yes.
Just saying.
Now that I could talk about. First of all, I want to thank everyone here and also some people who aren't here. Last week, I asked for some help in reference to what to help the people in Haiti. And I have received a bunch of things that I am going to drop at the Caribbean Health Center tomorrow. I received some iodine, tarp, baby blankets, paper for the kids to do their schoolwork, wipes. I mean, all kinds of things that are, and money. So I'm going to drop all these things off. So thank you very much for your generosity. I really appreciate it. And I could say, as a native-born Haitian, I cannot understand why U.S. policy towards Haiti is just so different from what it is in other countries. For instance, you have the dry foot, wet foot law when it comes to the Cubans and the Haitians, but then, and we have our issues, that is true, but a lot of that I blame on the United States and the United Nations.
Correct.
Because had they not interfered so much with what is going on in Haiti, I think we probably would have gotten a whole lot further than we are now.
I was in Haiti when Aristide was there, when we put Aristide back into power, the whole bit, and I was with him as one of his White House security guards. I'm not going to get into the whole 1994 when we went in there and pushed the whole thing back out. But here's what I know about the two different places. What we got from Afghanistan doesn't compare what we did or did not get from Haiti. We, as the United States, and we have to use the word we strongly, we as the people who vote people in and don't monitor the issues that are at hand, it becomes a we. And if you don't know the issues, then it's a you problem. But it's still always a we as a country. We got things from Afghanistan that was more profitable than we'll ever get from Haiti. So they'll never really give things to Haiti because we don't get enough profit from them. It's more about.
I don't agree with that. I vehemently disagree with that.
Okay.
Because from Haiti, the United States got its freedom. From Haiti, the United States got the Louisiana Purchase.
Right.
We could tell you, as a matter of fact, maybe we should one day interview my brother, because he could tell you other countries that Haiti has helped, because it was the first and only slave revolt that was successful in kicking out the enslavers out of the country. So it was the first Black republic. Uh, and to have, to this day, they're still studying and trying to figure out how could these people have won the war against what was back then one of the biggest, strongest military in the world. And so yeah, the United States have got a lot from Haiti. As a matter of fact, every time I hear somebody says, "You're in America, you need to speak English," and I said, "Well, you should really take Haiti, because if it weren't for Haiti, you'd be speaking French." And so you need to learn your history if you're going to say you're in America and you need to learn to speak English. So yeah, the United States, I would argue, has had a lot more from Haiti than it has had from, I would argue, almost any other country.
I guess I'm thinking more of a profit loss statement as a current.
But that's exactly what
Yeah.
I'm thinking of as well, because without the United States being able to get as strong as it did with the help of
Haiti.
free, to the freed Haitians,
Yes.
it would not have been the superpower that it is now. And so the argument that it's gotten more from other countries, that's not, well, I mean, you could argue what you want, but
No, but I totally get what you're saying, especially when it comes to history. And I did know that about Haiti, and I'm glad you said that to let everybody know that Haiti had the influence on where we are now as the beginning.
Well, I'm bothered by the fact that Haitians cannot freely come to this country.
Correct.
As other minority groups can, or foreign groups can. And right now, we have people that are crossing the Mexican border much more easily than Haitians can come into the US. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is fair. I mean, we're treated worse than stepchildren in those fairy tales where the stepchildren are always abused and neglected. And I really think that the reason for that is because we were able to kick our enslavers out. And at that time, the United States had slavery. And so you can't have a bunch of people who kick their enslavers out on your back door and welcome them, because what's going to happen is it's going to bring ideas to the people you're enslaving that they could kick you out as well. So I think it started from there, that hey, we can't talk about these people, we cannot welcome them, we have to treat them in the worst way possible, because we want to show the enslaved people that we have here that whether
we have the power,
who the power is, and that you're supposed to be in an inferior position, whether you were able to kick out the people who are enslaving you or not. So I think the legacy of that just continues, decade after decade to have an impact on Haiti. And then on top of that, you now have people who are put in power who are just out for themselves. When I hear about the amounts of money that the so-called leaders of Haiti were able to take from the country,
right?
I mean, it's catastrophic that you have a country that is poor because its own people keep taking from it. Yeah, it's really, really difficult for me to talk about.
But it also shows you the diabolical issues of our federal government or our government and what they use people for, and how they don't mind dismissing people. And that goes right back to Afghanistan. They don't mind allowing people to die there because they got what they want. They can leave. They can leave whatever behind and just close their mental mind door and say, "Well, we've done the best we can. We're out." Now, that's a policy.
One of the things that I'm sorry.
No,
one
go
of
ahead.
the things that bothered me about I am supposed to say I apologize. Somebody said that there's nothing sorry about me. I should stop saying I'm sorry. I should start saying I apologize. So I apologize for interrupting you. One of the things that I found surprising was how the U.S. left. I thought that it would have said to whoever was a United States citizen in Afghanistan that, hey, by the way, we're leaving on such and such a date. Pack your things. Let's get ready if you want to leave. But instead, it just seems like it just got up and left and said, oh, yeah, there were some American citizens. Let's go back and get them. And I'm really surprised at how, there didn't seem to be a plan to do this.
My theory is that this day was coming, and prior administrations suggested that this day was coming. We need to kind of cut ties and stop investing in this war we're not winning kind of thing.
Well, they kept kicking the can.
And so at some point, but I know that whoever was going to cut the ties, it was going to be ugly.
Yep.
And and there was always a question looming as to whether or not the Taliban would just take over again.
There was no question. We knew that was happening. I don't even know if that was really a question. Oh, absolutely, so fast.
It happened so fast.
Something not plugged in.
So then there's also the issue of the fact that, the Taliban, even though they have gained forces and done all of this takeover, they're going to have to reevaluate what they're doing because for the most part, they are coming in so strong that they really don't have a tax base, and they're going to have a very dysfunctional government.
So
who's
let me ask you,
going to run this?
Let me ask you this, Judge Claudia Barber, and that's a great question. The Taliban's probably, my guess and forethought is they're going to want to establish a government. In that time, do we work with them when they do get to that part of? Do we invite them to that table?
Well, that's a tricky question because number one, the U.S. kind of came in guns blazing.
Yep.
And they always want to be recognized as the superpower. There probably is an opportunity to collaborate and have a seat at the table. But the issue also is we have something to offer, maybe in terms of trying to put the country together such that it becomes somewhat attractive to someone. Right now, it's attractive to no one but themselves, but the Taliban. Nobody wants to necessarily visit there for tourist reasons. And they basically run everybody away with the negative press that the Taliban has taken over. Who wants to stay?
I think
and who do you have to pay taxes?
I think one of the biggest arguments any invaded country or invaded people anywhere, whether it be from a neighborhood to a country, says, however how we want to run it like this. Because we did that also when the Hutus and the Tutsis, when we went in there, when Clinton was in office, I know because I was there as a UN peacekeeper. When we removed a lot of the people, there were people being killed on purpose because they were part of helping Americans, the old regime. And so a lot of people got slaughtered. Now, know your people history, right? This happens all the time. Will just talked about it in Vietnam. It happens. My question is for us as people, how are we supposed to band together and not be so divided over how it happened, because it just happens all the time?
Well, I read somewhere that back during the Bush administration, the Taliban asked to enter into some sort of agreement with the United States government because they wanted to work with the United States government. No matter how much you disagree with a superpower, sometimes you have to work with them, and just so you don't always have to keep looking over your shoulder all the time. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that the U.S. could have gone in there with guns blazing, but that was not the proper policy. I'm shocked that I heard that they said half of the kids under 5 years old are starving in Afghanistan. And I said, wow, instead of using all of these arms and things of that sort, maybe had you fed the children, the parents would have said, oh, okay, thank you very much for feeding my children. What's your position on this? And maybe I should follow your position on this because you're making my child live longer. You're making my child healthy. As opposed to, okay, I'm going to join your opposition because I don't see anything that you're offering.
Well, places we
my family.
Places we go, our policy, we create people to dislike us. It's just something. I don't see how you can turn over you're not going to make everyone happy. I get it. But there's a lot of people when we go there and we end up, whether it be accident or on purpose, we create someone that's going to, in history, come against us because we killed their father, their mother, or we had the causes of killing their father and their mother, or we were blamed for killing their father and their mother.
May I disagree with that?
Yes, Will.
Okay. After World War I, we allowed the French to make life really miserable for the Germans who lost the war. And after World War II, we got smart. We helped the Germans, the Italians, the French, the Brits, and the Japanese revive their economy. We did the smart thing, and we're entitled to take credit for it. We also do dumb things, but we also do smart things.
Well, Japan is a perfect example of doing smart things in the sense that they were our enemy when we started World War II, and now they're an ally.
Right.
And the Germans.
And the Germans. We are
and the Italians.
So
so it's not that hard to turn an enemy into a friend when you use the right method.
And I think, like Will said, we have people they've made enemies even here in the United States because they have not looked out for us. They have not taken care of us properly. Not like they pat us on the head or like they pacify us. And the policy they have used overseas, they've used even in our own country, they've used even in our own towns, they used even in our own cities. It's a shame after the 29th, August 29th will be 16 years Katrina has hit the shores. And yet the 9th Ward is desolated. Completely. No rebuild, no nothing. Their policies down there did not help them. Matter of fact, it helped them lose their homes for taxations. And that's a whole other, so we have bad policies in every city, every town, and across the country. It doesn't work. As a people, we are being divided because they shouldn't have done this, they shouldn't have done that. Well, those days are over. There are people that's going to die there in Afghanistan, and there's people that's going to be brought over here that's not going to be a good person to bring over. Mm-hmm. There's just no way around it. I don't know how we're supposed to be okay with that as people because it hurts us emotionally.
It does, especially if you know that bad people are coming over here.
You do know
that should scare everybody to death.
Yes.
That should really scare the socks off of everybody.
But we can't live in fear. We can never live in fear. Because like Will said, there were bad people that got brought over from Vietnam. There are bad people that get brought over in every conflict or every place we've been. We've opened our doors for an immigration issue and bad people let in. And yet we still have places like Haiti where we don't let anyone in. it's just it seems so.
Well, I'm kind of concerned about the bad people statement. There are people who do bad things.
Yes,
and
yeah, right.
People who do bad things are all over, including native-born Americans.
True.
It's true.
Very
And
true.
so-
Very true.
Very true. Don't get me
So-
started on that one. I can go. You really go on that one, you know?
Well,
I mean,
yeah,
you're talking
okay,
about
so-
mob rule
Yeah.
and how lynchings happen in this country,
Right.
but because of lawlessness.
Yes.
Lawlessness of native-born people, you know, by native-born people. You know, they're no different than the Taliban running over
I agree.
Afghanistan.
And thank you for Marilyn for correcting me on that, because that is it. Words do matter, and words do have meaning. And so it's not bad people; it's that people do bad things. You're right about that.
So, you know, I think that there's a lot to be said about conflict and you know, war-torn countries and what next. And I think the problem is that we're kind of playing this by ear and we really don't know what's next. And as things unfold, you know, August 31 is next week. Let's be clear about that. And to the extent you're going to have some upheaval and things unsettled and things unresolved, that seems to be pretty much what's going to happen.
As a people, things are happening. Things are already done. We're getting out. That's done for. We're done. Do we look at Biden or his administration saying he failed on this?
I can't say that at all. And I don't take that position at all. And I don't agree with that. I don't see him as a failure. And I don't see his actions taken on the failure. He knew that this was going to be ugly. He knew that this was going to be a difficult piece of history. But somebody's got to do it and say the end, or we just keep fighting a war into infinity.
And I agree with you. I don't blame the administration. What I do want, I don't understand here when it comes to, and I guess I'm not a White House press agent, why we don't always talk about not so much what a past administration has done, but every administration for the last 20 years have kicked us down the can, because we all knew we had to leave, but no one said, when this happens, these are the possibilities. Let the American people be forewarned or just informed. Pick the words you want, but inform is like, this could happen. And if this does happen, it doesn't mean that the work we tried to do there, the work we did do there, doesn't mean it wasn't justified. But we never told the American people that. The American people was never notified or never informed. Now it looks like a chaos. Mitham?
Thank you very much. Thank you for allowing me to say, and I hope everybody is doing good, and thanks for hosting this. I just wanted to say just two things. One, I think as per our previous president, Harry Truman said, buck stops at me. And of course, it's not a fault of our President Joe Biden, but this planning could have been done better, because 2,500 troops were removed and then brought back 6,000 troops. I don't know why you have to bring back 6,000 troops. Why should you remove 2,500 troops when there are so many Americans in Afghanistan right now, even today, as per the news? And also one other thing is that about the migration, I myself migrated from India, and I will say, yes, they should have migration, but with having background check. I think if they do a thorough vetted process by FBI background check, I don't see why there should not be a problem, because I'm a US citizen, migrated from India, and I think Miss Marilyn is also from Haiti, migrated here. And I don't think we are felon, we are good law-abiding citizen of the United States. So thank you very much. Your comments.
I think that we can't blame the Biden administration, because it was a responsibility of cutting ties with Afghanistan that we inherited from the Trump administration. So he had to send troops back in because the exit was not being run as smoothly. There were a lot, just like Ms. said, there were a lot of people that were still there, and he had to send troops back in to see that these people could exit safely. And still, with that deadline, he didn't. The Biden administration didn't set that deadline of August 31st. That was due to the Trump administration. So I think he's trying to do the best that he can to help as many people as possible exit safely. And the sad thing about it is what Dr. Dyer said, that there will be people there that should have left that won't be able to leave. And there are people there who will leave, taking advantage of the chaos, and they're not supposed to be here, but they will end up here. So it's a very confusing situation because things were done so quickly.
And I believe Biden, when he said that no matter when he left, because he had made up his mind he wanted to end the war. And so no matter when he left, these kinds of problems were going to exist. And, everybody is trying to fault him so strongly and heavily. And I don't know if this evacuation could have been done better. Maybe he could have gotten people out before he declared it into the war or not. But the fact is he has gotten 80,000 people out of that country safely with no bloodshed. And no matter when he left, it had been now, a year from now, or 10 years from now, this same problem probably would still have existed because the Taliban had already been set up to take over Afghanistan.
Now, that is so correct. Like I said, and we've mentioned that. Thank you for mentioning that. It does not matter when this happens. This was going to happen. Now, the other issue, we have another, not a problem, but we left back some equipment that we left for the military to use. Well, now that the Taliban has taken over and will take over, they're taking over all the equipment we left behind. So if they ever use their equipment, or when they ever use their equipment, or for whatever reason, the equipment that we left, we purchased, we gave, is going to be used against. Now, that is just something that's going to come up again, and they're going to try to blame it on a certain administration because they said if he, she, them, or they didn't leave it behind, they wouldn't use it against those or them or us. And we have to see past that. We have to understand that this is not a blame game. This is an understanding, and this isn't an emotional roller coaster. But yet we still have to know the facts. This was going to happen.
They actually said the same thing when President Obama was successful in the killing of Osama bin Laden and leaving all of some of the mission parts there. But with that being said, we also have to be aware of the fact that of the economics of this. This war has cost us billions, if not trillions of dollars.
Right.
And from that perspective alone, we should stop, crucifying people in the United States, for stealing bread, when they're trying to feed a family or something, and putting them in jail for something minor like that.
Thank you.
That's frivolous compared to all this money we've lost in these wars.
Now, you're right, Judge Barber. You're right, and as sad as we could feel about the women that's going to be harmed, they will. We know that for a fact. There's going to be lots of killings. We can cry, we can pray, we can be sad about it. But I don't want to blame anyone. This is not to blame anyone. This is about us saying, I don't know actually what we could say to that, because death is important. Again, life is important. Death is important. And women and children and men and families are going to be killed. It's just, it happened in this country. Like Judge Claudia Barber said, it happened in this country by our own country. So
By our own people.
by our own people. Right.
Yes, yes. And it happens all over the world.
Yes. Yes. As a policy or as people, we know we can heal if we have hope. Is there hope? There's no hope in blaming anyone, but there's hope in conversation. Where do you see the hope coming from? Will, anyone?
I was listening to I apologize for interrupting you, Kathy. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask him what he meant by hope and compensation. You mean as far as us compensating the Afghan government?
Yes, or the Afghan people as they come here.
Oh, well, yeah, that's where the hope, to me, that's where the hope does lie, and that we're able to accommodate the people that we bring here. And I find it strange that Republicans, you know, they want everything resolved perfectly, but they don't want to take in Afghans. They don't want any more immigrants here. So, but to me, that's where our responsibilities lie now, I think, in taking care of the immigrants that come here.
It's
And
fast.
also, perhaps, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Joni. No.
Perhaps if we can open up lines of communication with the Taliban, if they are interested in discussing issues with us, maybe we can soften their impact on Afghanistan and its people. If, just like someone suggested, that you take an incoming power and you show them how to develop an economic base. And we could do that because we did it with the opium in Afghanistan. So if we show the Taliban how to do that, and I don't know if we'd be willing to do that, then perhaps they would make certain concessions as far as their treatment of the Afghan women.
You made me think of something, Joni, and it kind of brought up something what Will said. In World War II, we were fighting Germany, but Germany had a faction. It was called the Nazis. Mm-hmm. And if you believe that we got rid of every Nazi out of Germany, you're crazy. Mm-hmm. Just because they took off their uniform, just because they took off their swastika, and they were like, no, I was just working for Hitler. I didn't really believe in it. If you didn't believe that they were still Nazis in the heart of hearts, just like if the Taliban, whenever they come to the table and they take off and whatever you want to say, they take off, they're going to still have that undercoating of how they feel about certain people. Just like in the Southern Democrats, just because they took off the hoods and start wearing ties doesn't mean they didn't have the undercurrent of how they felt about people and their policies. So we have to just know that the person we're going to be dealing with is probably the person that just recently cut off someone's head and said, nope, it wasn't me. I was just working for the leader. So that it just made me think of that.
Mm-hmm. I think you're absolutely right with that, taking that perspective. But I also think that power and money makes for strange bedfellows. So if you hinge your help on making a concession, maybe you will get those concessions regardless of how the person feels internally. Maybe they will have to make these concessions in order to get the information that they need in order to maintain a strong basis in Afghanistan. So,
Marilyn, what were you going to say before, Kathy?
Oh, I was going to say that well, first of all, I agree with what Joni and Kathy have said. And I was going to say that I was listening to a radio program where there were some women from Afghanistan who were talking about how they don't need anybody to save them. that they could save themselves, that they want to be their own heroines. And I found that really, really quite interesting because at this point you have 2 decades of women who saw what it was like without the Taliban ruling. And you cannot put that kind of freedom back in the box.
Right.
So it's not as if all of a sudden they're going to be, yes, you're right, we are second-class citizens.
Yeah, we'll go back there.
And so, yeah, exactly. So it's going to be messy, I think, in the near future, but I do think that with the help of the rest of the world, that they'll be able to get to a position where, well, to a better position, I should say.
And I don't think this conversation may be new to having as a public forum, but this conversation is not old because we must have had this conversation during World War II. We must have had this conversation during the Vietnam War. We've had to have this conversation every time we pull out of a country or the end of a war, end of a conflict, people are going to come here at the land of opportunity. So these are the same conversations, but I also have to tell you this. I've talked to some military brothers and sisters of mine, and they're very upset by it. They seem very harmed by it. They seem that whatever they did and put their lives on the line there, it seemed to feel like it was nothing. And I too have had that struggle feeling also, but I don't. It's my own personal struggle. I don't think it's policy or people. I think it's almost like whether I go helping Katrina too, and you go down there and there's still people who are not in homes we help because we help, and yet there are a lot of things that doesn't get fixed or doesn't have a better outcome. And as soldiers, as people who serve, the outcome is never really our issue, but we do like to see better outcomes, and it doesn't always seem to happen. And I think that's hard for us to live with no matter what.
And speaking to Dr. Dyer's question about hope, I think Marilyn brought up an excellent vision of hope in that the Afghan women can be their own champions and lead the fight for their freedom and not be willing to give up what they've gained over the past 20 years.
And we can support that as people. We can support that as people.
Yes, and then there could be that discussion as well. There are countries that we've been in that we just have never left.
Yeah.
We talked about Germany before. And so I could see how the people who fought in Afghanistan and the people who lost their loved ones to what was happening in Afghanistan, how they could feel dissatisfied with what is going on now. Because we could have, well, there's some countries that we're still in, and we're not at war with those countries, yet the forts that we have over there peacefully coexist with the military that they have, and things seem to be, I guess, maybe a truce between everybody, and that seems to be working okay. And I guess that's really what I don't quite understand, which is why I said at the beginning I didn't feel like I had the confidence to discuss this issue in the way that I would like to discuss it, because the way that things have been left, there could have been an orderly exit, and I don't see that orderly exit. If we have a date to leave a certain place, you start saying, oh, okay, I need to pack up the things that I don't use on an everyday basis first. Let's put those things in a box. Let's put the next set of things in a box and leave orderly. I think it seems so disorganized.
You are absolutely right.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mithun, how I
I
didn't
think
hear.
you are absolutely correct, Ms. Marilyn. I'm seconding you.
Patricia, go ahead. Oh, Patricia's giving thumbs up about the orderly. Yeah, and I do know that the contractors who were over there, they left a couple of months ago. So that was never not that what contractors do is report it to individuals, but they picked up and packed up a couple of months ago.
May I be heard for a minute?
Gad will.
Okay, I don't see any reason to treat Afghanistan better than Uzbekistan or Kazakhstan or the other countries where we have not had a presence. And the first thing is, and the second thing is, as to the equipment that we left there, that equipment will not be maintained.
Mm-hmm.
There will not be a supply of parts, and that equipment will become junk very rapidly.
That's a good point, Will. Thank you. Unless we have, I hope we don't have counterparts like Russia helping them fix the parts that we left behind.
Yeah, Marion, just up for a second. I came in kind of late, but I'm going to be the one that's the agitator in the group. I had the honor a couple of years ago, I think it was in 2018, September, to attend Iran summit. And it was actually sponsored by Code Pink. Some people think it's a crazy group, crazy leftist group, but it really isn't. Within that time, I had the great honor, I have a picture of him, I've forgotten his name, but he was a right-hand man to Colonel Powell. And at that time, until he spoke for that 20 minutes to explain the pre and post 9/11, I had this complete distaste and disrespect, no respect for Colin Powell until after the 20 minutes that he spoke. And Colin Powell recognized what the United States had done. If you guys can remember, and I'm saying this is not about blaming or pointing fingers, but these are facts. Donald Rumsfeld, he recently died. Hope he's enjoying hell right now. I'm sorry, I'm being very honest. He had stated very openly during the Iraq War, because they knew what they were about was to go into a sovereign nation, that they have created a dictator there to control its resources. He said, get out of Afghanistan, we're just bombing, just rock mountains and rocks. That's when they shifted over to Iraq. I don't know how many of you guys can remember that or are aware of that. Come up to today, to present, and I'm in agreement with soon-to-be Judge Marilyn here, that it is disorderly. It is absolutely a complete disorder. And listen to the Europeans and what they're saying and what's going on. So I don't know this whole dynamics of everything, but we can reach out outside of the regular mainstream media and news to really understand what's going on. It's an absolute disgrace. America go and we use these countries and just totally leave them in disarray. So, and you're right, sir. I'm hoping that Russia doesn't step in, but do not be surprised Russia or China steps in to help, quote unquote, organize. That's my piece.
I agree with you, Patricia, and I was there during both of those issues with Desert Storm, moving Afghanistan. Trust me, when I boots hit the ground in Afghanistan, we were just like, what or why are we here?
But see, I think the United States is aware of the fact that Russia could scoop in.
Yes.
And
you can't be that
quicker.
dumb. Right. Yeah, we're not the smartest people in the room. There's a whole bunch of room with people, and if we could think of it, hopefully we know they thought of it, right? So
they thought of it.
Yeah,
they thought of it.
And
Dr. Dyer, you're absolutely correct. And Judge, another thing I wanted to say, because
well, hold on, Mitchum. Which makes it so perplexing, like Marilyn says. We're not the smartest people on the planet, and there's lots of smart, really amazing people that work for the federal government must realize that this chaos and the way they pulled out had to have known that this was going to happen if you didn't do it in a systematic order, which that is what's perplexing to us. It's not that this wasn't going to happen, but the way they did it, it's so confusing to us as human beings. We would never leave a party like this. So why would we leave a country like this? That's just like, I've pulled out of countries before, and we've had what you call go times, where who's leaving, what's going, what's being packed up. We let the people know we were out of there. There's a lot of times I left before all that other stuff goes because whatever. But there's just ways to leave, and I don't know. I don't know.
You're
May I be heard
absolutely
for a
correct.
second?
May I say something?
Yes,
Let me say something. The Russians were there.
they were. They left.
We provided armaments to the locals to defeat the Russians. My guess is that the Russians will not waste very much money on this country, on Afghanistan.
Unless they befriend them.
No, you are absolutely correct, Mr. Wilbur. I just wanted to say one thing is that I've been to Middle East so many times, and being from India is just adjacent from beside Pakistan and Afghanistan. And I myself has several experiences in Middle East. I cannot say the name of the country because it's going to be on the news in the web. So I'll just share one experience very shortly. Like I wanted to have a long layover, and I wanted to take the hotel at that time in the airport in the Middle East, and I had to give my passport to them. And the passport you should not be giving to anybody. It's the owner of the passport is the country that they're issuing you. Like say, for example, it's a US passport, only US government can ask it back, not any other government, or say if it is India or Haiti or any other country. And believe me, I was in US that time, and I was like, okay, I wanted to say something, but then I saw the people around with the guns and all, and I just say, hey, can I get a receipt that you have my passport? And that's when they gave me the receipt. But I have to give my passport just to stay in a hotel inside the airport. That is what we are talking about. Thank you.
Just a quick statement in that, if we also remember, as much as I am appreciative of the current status quo of our government, we've got to understand they cannot, resolve the issue that has been created, not just in the last 4 years, from the yesteryears before. And there's history. I remember my professor during my undergrad, he said, there are facts here that we can go and see. It's not from the far left of socialist thought process, but the reality of Saudi Arabia and Israel and the United Kingdom and other nations who came together, the United Nations, to place a particular country in power right now. Nothing, what is going on right now, is a surprise. And then, like gentleman said earlier, if we remember back, who empowered the Taliban? It was the United States who armed them against Russia. And look who comes back into power. What is the whole, my question was to the society as a whole, was, what was the purpose of our men and women who have sacrificed 20 years ago for what? So you can hand it back over to the same quote unquote terrorist group? That's my end of my comments.
Okay, so may I be heard for a second, please?
Yes.
Okay, so this is Ronald. I usually listen and I usually don't say anything. But the one thing I want to say is this. In regards to one YouTube document I was listening to about Afghanistan, it was stated that Afghanistan was never able to be run over or ruled by any foreign country. They said that Alexander the Great tried it, Genghis Khan,
Failed.
other empires tried it.
Failed.
It hasn't happened. So the one thing that can be said about the people in Afghanistan is that they do not want to be ruled by anyone else other than Afghanistan.
Yes.
That's all I got to say.
Profound truth.
Thank you, everyone. I will let you know. I am reaching out to people I know of in Afghanistan to get some accounts of what they have seen and what they're going through. I am reaching out on my personal line, and when they do able to come on the show, I will bring them on. That would be, because we like to hear people's stories. Stories is not so much the story, but it's people's lives. Remember, these are about people's lives. We talk about people's lives. We talk about legal issues. We talk about humanity. And collectively, we're all part of it. And ultimately, what we say over and over again, you have to be involved to make changes. If you're not involved, then you become a spectator. Then they use your name for the things they do, and they becomes not you. So get informed, have an understanding, and create an action. And that's what we like to do here on You Be the Judge. My lovely co-host, Marlin, Pierre, soon to be Circuit Court Judge of Montgomery County, and Judge Claudia Barber. Anything before we take off, Marilyn, besides send money? Please send money.
Yes, please send money. And I want to thank you for the money that you've sent already for Haiti. Like I said, I'm going to bring the money and all the other provisions that were donated to the Caribbean Health Center tomorrow. And I'm pretty sure they'll be very appreciative for everything that was sent. So thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Judge Claudia Barber.
I missed out, Mary Lynn, because I left early last week. So I did not get information on the contributions or donations that could be made to Haiti. I would like to donate. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I could send some information about the Caribbean Health Center if you want to send it to them directly, or if you want to send it to me, that'll be fine.
Also, we do know there's the march on Washington on the 28th this Saturday. If you can show up, if you're in the area, if you're out of the area, if you want to bus on in, that is the John Lewis voting. They did pass it in the House, and now we're waiting for it to be passed in the next place. But please come out, be safe, wear your mask, get vaccinated, blah, blah. Please be careful, join the march. Thank you very much. You guys have a great night.
Thank you, everyone. Bye. See you next week.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.